Greetings, ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to this review of one of the Tier 4 German tank destroyers, this thing, the Marder 38T. Now, you may well have already noticed that already on my channel I have a review of one of the other Tier 4 tank destroyers, the Hetzer. And the Hetzer is kind of the assault gun of the Tier 4 tank destroyers. And with this machine we're going to kind of the other extreme. The Hetzer, from the front at least, was fairly well armoured and excelled at close range fights. This is definitely not well armoured, as I'll discuss in a moment, and excels at long range fights. So what do you get with this thing? Well, many of the stats are pretty standard, but I am going to pick out a few for you. Firstly, the frontal armour, 50mm, that only applies in very specific sections, which I will discuss in more detail in just a moment, but to all intents and purposes, assume this tank has no armour when you're playing it. The view range, 360, is good for Tier 4, but actually among the Tier 4 tank destroyers, that is not the best by a long shot. You have tanks out there with 390, 400 meter view range, so that's nothing too special. But what does make this tank is the combination of respectable view range combined with a 75mm gun, this Pak 43 L46 gun, which is a very, very good gun indeed, just to completely annihilate your opponents. So, this is a tank destroyer. Let's talk about those guns. Well, there's 3 guns on this tank. And basically, they tend to be incremental upgrades on each other, essentially. So, firstly, you have this 76.2mm gun. Now, it's a bit of a weird caliber gun, bit of a weird size, because this was actually a captured Russian gun that was then used on the Marder series of tanks. This is the same 76mm gun that you get on the Marder 2, and if you have absolutely any common sense at all, you will never ever have to use it, because you will already have this middle gun, 75mm gun, unlocked on the Marder 2. This is the top gun on the Marder 2. Now, whilst I am going to move on from this 76mm gun, I would like to point something out. The stats of it are not particularly impressive, however there are a couple of things worth pointing out. Firstly, it has the highest alpha damage with AP or APCR ammunition, at 115 compared to 110 with the 75mm guns, but it has the lowest HE damage. The accuracy is the worst, the aim time is the worst. This is the worst gun. It also actually has the best premium ammo penetration, not by much, but it's there. There it is. It also has the worst rate of fire. But you will never have to use this gun, because with any common sense, you will already have this thing unlocked on the Marder 2. And you can use this to grind out much of the tank. Now this 75mm gun, this is not a bad gun. 17.65 round rate of fire, 108 penetration, 110 average damage, 0.38 accuracy or dispersion at 100 meters, which, whilst not being fantastic for a Tier 4 machine, is not completely dreadful either. 1.7 second aim time, which is very good. This is not a bad gun, and is certainly not particularly painful to use on this tank. The top gun on the tank, though, is an upgrade. Now, this is essentially a very incremental upgrade over the previous gun. Same caliber gun. Well, I say it's very incremental. All the damage and penetration values are the same, but the rate of fire goes up, which gives you better DPM. The accuracy gets better, which is obviously good, and the aim time gets even better, which is clearly great. So, this is the gun you want to be using on this tank, and this is a very good gun on this tank. The only respect in which you could argue it's a little bit lackluster, 108mm of penetration can give you problems when you're facing Tier 6 tanks. So carrying a little bit of APCR is not a terrible idea, and this problem is mitigated somewhat by the very good accuracy. But this is a very good gun. In fact, ignoring the penetration, the main problem with this gun is the not very generous supply of ammunition you get with it. You get 38 rounds of ammunition, which might sound good, but it's really not all that much, especially if you're bottom tier. And you can see I carry some APCR because the penetration is a little bit lacking. A couple of rounds of HE and then 30 rounds of AP. And I found that perfectly sufficient for this tank. So, let's just have a quick look at the grind. Here is the Marder 38T. And you'd have come from the Marder 2 to the Marder 38T. Now, what about all these modules? Well, as I've already said, you should already have this middle gun unlocked, which is not a bad gun at all. Radio-wise, well, it depends if you've been down any of the previous, any of the other German lines or not. If you have, and I'm thinking in particular if you've played the Panzer 35T or the Panzer 38T, in fact, actually, no, if you've played the Marder 2, I'm talking complete gibberish. But if you have played some of the others, you'll already have the top radio unlocked, so you might as well mount the top radio straight away. The top engine is only usable on this tank and the Borsig. This is the stock engine on the Rheinmetall Borsig, which might give you an idea as to how mobile that's going to be at tier 8. The intermediate engine is only used on the Marder, and the stock engine is used on the Grill and the Marder. So basically you're going to have the stock engine on this thing, which only has 150 horsepower, but each of the engine upgrades are only incremental upgrades. So basically stock, you're going to have this 75mm gun, top radio, bottom engine, bottom tracks. I would, now I can't remember if the weight limit allows it. If you need the weight limit, get the suspension first. If you don't, I'd get the gun, the top gun. I think that's going to do you better than getting the engine upgrades immediately, because the engine upgrades are only very incremental. But this is not a painful grind by any stretch of the imagination. It's certainly a less painful grind than the Hetzer, which is the other primary tier 4 German tank destroyer. There is also the Stug 3B, but I will talk about that another time in another video, and I will talk about it alongside the Stug 3G. So we'll talk about the Stugs together. Now, the grind on this thing is fairly painless. What about other things? Well, what else is there to consider? The traverse arc on this tank is actually pretty good. I'm not going to show you exactly what it is. You can find that out for yourself, or you can see in the replays that are to come. But it's got a fairly wide gun traverse, which is pretty nice, and is indicative of the Marder 2 as well, which is quite a nice feature to have. Now, if you're going to, let's just quickly go back to the tech tree for a moment. I've talked about the grind on the actual Marder itself. What about the previous grind? Panzerjäger 1, that's a fairly, I guess, respectable, but sort of pretty typical, not that exciting tank destroyer at tier 2. You know, it's fairly respectable. The Marder 2, a lot of people don't like it. I personally have no real problem with it, but I didn't play the old Marder 2 before it got nerfed. The gun's kind of derpy, but it's not terrible. And then you have the choice, the Hetzer to go down the original tank destroyer line, or the Marder 38T, and this will lead you down the much more fragile tank destroyer line, and it plays very much like the Marder 2, just a better version of it. And from here you can get to the Panzersoufflé 4C, Nashorn, Panzersoufflé 5, Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger, Waffenträger auf Panzer 4, and Waffenträger auf E100. So this is the more fragile tank destroyer line. But you can go down that, and it's all very kind of campy, but you might enjoy it. So, what about equipment and crew skills? Well, this is tier 4. There's a very good chance that you're not really going to have much in the way of crew skills, but if you do, 6th sense on your commander, camo on your other crew members, and work your way from there. In terms of equipment, I would recommend... What would I recommend? Okay, toolbox, pointless. Enhanced gun lane drive, you've already got a badass aiming time, pointless. Coated optics, you could, but I think there are better choices. Binocular telescope, I would recommend. You have a wide gun traverse, which means you don't have to turn the hull much, which means you can have the binocular telescopes active more, which means you can make use of that pretty respectable view range. Gun rammer, yeah, better DPM will have that. So binocular telescopes, gun rammer. Wet ammo rack, pointless, haven't noticed any problems. Camo net, I think would be the only other thing I would recommend. Spool liner, pointless. Torsion, enhanced springs, pointless. So I would say camo net, binocular telescopes, and gun rammer, but I used a pauper equipment setup on this tank, and, you know, it did fine. So if you have no intention of keeping it, you're just grinding through it, by all means use the pauper setup, toolbox, binos, camo net. If you want to keep it, swap out the toolbox for a gun rammer. Right, that being said, let's go and have a quick look at the armor profile. So, on with the armor. Now, we're not going to spend very long on this because this tank is not exactly renowned for its armor. Okay, the main things to point out here, it has armor values of 50mm at the front on these two frontal plates. The rest of it is utter garbage. If you want to kill this thing really quickly and really easily, load high explosive, pretty much any high explosive, and just shoot through the gun shield. It's 15mm. It doesn't really matter where you aim. This is 15mm, maybe 16. It's utter garbage. You will pen, you will do max damage, you will wreck this tank's face. That is literally the only thing to be said about the armor on this tank. It is terrible. There's a big weak spot at the back here. 10mm compared with mighty 15. Who cares? No one cares. You just penetrate this thing with high explosive and kill it. It is incredibly fragile. Just briefly to mention, soft stats. Now, I am not going to wade my way through all these soft stats. I am, however, going to pick on one. It has 9 degrees of gun depression, which is actually pretty damn good. So yeah, the gun depression on this tank is not bad. Not bad at all. But the armor is garbage. Don't expect to bounce anything at all in this tank. If you ever do bounce anything, consider yourself incredibly fortunate. Because basically, well, you shouldn't. So there we go. That's the armor. Let's get on to some gameplay, shall we? Here we have game number 1, in which we are top tier here in a standard game on Redshire. Redshire is quite a nice map to have this tank on. Fair amount of soft cover for you to hide behind, although I must confess, thinking of somewhere to take a tank destroyer on this map does kind of give me problems. Because if you camp back at sort of the hill just to my right and behind me at sort of J6, K7, something like that, that hill, if you just go up there, you really run the risk of not having a great deal of much to shoot at. Now, maybe that would be slightly more viable in an encounter game, where the objective is sitting at around E4, and so you might have some people move further forward, but coming up here is actually very awkward. I'm still doing it because my tank is very fragile, and if I get spotted, there's a very good chance I'm imminently going to die, even if this is a low tier game. So we've got a Hetzer making his way around to that flank. A T-28 and a Matilda are following him. So we've got some tier 4 tanks going to that fairly important spot at E0, which is good. I can work with that. Now I have taken tank destroyers over to sort of F4, G5 kind of area, just at that bottom edge of that hill before, and had some success, but in a tank destroyer with such little armor, I'm hesitant to do that. Having said that, I haven't got any shots where I started, so I move forwards. And hello, Cheehy. 101, and you can see the reload on this tank, and I do not have a 100% crew. Somehow that bounces, not really sure how. That puts him on low health, and that shot finishes him off. So we've got our first kill already, which is nice, but our team is losing 2-4. Suddenly, we're not. It's 4-4, it's all square, which is nice. And there is a T-28 if memory serves. And an M8A1, and a medium 3. So, maybe this little hillock bit is the best place to bring a tank destroyer, even if it is quite lightly armoured. Try and make sure that you have some targets earlier on. And maybe if I'd come into this position earlier, maybe this game would have gone differently. I don't know. No idea. Anyway, 5-6. 5-7. Can you guys light any targets up for me, please? 5-8. Alright, so I'm just turning around to try and help these guys over on our left. I know there's a Matilda down there. There's a T-50, there's their B1. Hetzer takes out our Covenanter. Hetzer's bad news. There's the Matilda. Now, Matilda's a tough little tank, but this gun is more than up to the task. One hit. Bounce. Bounce. That was a bad shot, actually. There we go. We kill him for our second kill, and it's 7-11. Hetzers. In the open. I need to take this opportunity. Oh, damn it. Foiled by gun depression. That's frustrating. If I'd been able to make that shot... if, but, maybe. Shoulda, woulda, coulda, didn't. Right, let's just concentrate on what's actually happening. Our Hetzer here plays a good game. Well, let me rephrase. I can't remember which one, but one of our Hetzers does a lot of damage. Right, M2 medium. Pull back a bit, make sure I've got a shot. There we go, kill number 3. T28 over there. M8A1. Oh dear, okay. T28. 1. Somehow bounces. Kill number 4. Hetzer. And I know there's an M8A1 coming up behind me, but I really want to kill this Hetzer, which I do. Turn around. Oh, it's fractionally too late. That's really frustrating. And this tank really does not maneuver well. And now I'm ammo racked. He misses. I managed to get one hit into him, try and back off, but he kills me. And we're winning 13-12 suddenly. Now you can argue that I really should have paid more attention to that guy, and perhaps I should have done, but I did want to take out that enemy, Hetzer. Now, I'm not going to make you sit through the rest of this game. Our Hetzer kills their B1. It's our Hetzer and a 13 health LTP versus their Hetzer. I'm not going to make you sit through this. They win. Our Hetzer does not play very well at this point. He gets too cocky. He gets too confident. He thinks he can do anything and then he dies. So I'm going to stop it there. Anyway, I hope you guys appreciated that game, and now we'll move on to a situation where we are very much not top tier. Here's game number 2, and you can see that we are very clearly not top tier anymore. We are bottom tier. We are, however, here on Sand River, which is not a bad map for this tank. It tends to favour long-range engagements, which this tank likes, but it also tends to favour gun depression, and the gun depression on this tank is not the best. It's not the worst, but it's definitely not the best. So, oh look, it's a stock M7. Dude, you have my sincerest commiserations. The stock gun on that tank is woeful. Or maybe he's not using the stock gun. He's got the stock turret. Anyway. So what are we going to do? Well, that's a very good question. Well, this is an assault game. So, initially, I'm just going to poke my nose up around the corner of this ridge in the hope that somebody is going to go down to about G2 and spot. M7, I'm looking at you. But no, he seems more interested in ridge lines and whatnot. Oh, okay, right, fine, fair enough, I guess. But no one else is really fast enough to do it. I mean, you could say, oh, but you have a light tank there. Yes, but it's an AMX-40. And an AMX-40 is light in name only. It has good armor for its tier. Kind of, mediocre gun. But it is not what you would call fast. It actually has a high top speed, but it will only ever see that with a prevailing tailwind and being pushed downhill or possibly thrown off of a cliff. Anyway. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to spot at about G2, which is annoying. So the best we have is a VK3601H who's made his way into E1, just behind that hill thing. We're currently losing 1-2. So I'm deciding to reposition myself. Oh, M7, 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 M7. This tank has good aim time, but it's not quite good enough, and I don't have a 100% crew on this thing. Move up, Chihi there. Hellcat, can I get any shots on any of them? Ooh, might be able to get some fire in on that Chihi. Have a punt at where he was last seen. Have another punt. No, he's moved off. There we go. Nope, no effective fire so far. Someone finishes him off to level the scores at 3-all. And that M7 has managed to get himself killed, which is kind of frustrating because he could at least have done some useful scouting. And now I'm not trying to comment on his game. I have no idea what he actually did with his time, but I don't know. I'm willing to bet it wasn't colossally helpful. And I'm just trying to think, how useful am I being? The answer is, of course, at the moment, not very. And we've already used up 3 minutes of our 10-minute assaulting time. So I decide, screw it. I'm going to give this VK some support. Now this is not without its risks, because this involves me getting closer to the enemy and I have absolutely no armor. But I'm basically going to kind of patrol this ridgeline, I guess you could say. Just lost our S-35, which is a right shame because that's a very nice tank destroyer. Trying to use these bushes to conceal me. And see if I can get any spots and inform people what is going on. And hello, T-150, T-150. No idea if I've been spotted or not yet. Don't appear to have been. Oh, there's people coming in to make our... SU-85B is telling me to fall back. There's people coming in to make our VK's life more difficult. And I decide to try and help him out. Oh, ouch. Okay, fine. Yep, owie. I repair the gun. But that was painful. Oh, big hit on our VK there. I'm trying to help this guy and... Who put that rock there? That's not fair. He manages to nail the Chi-Nu. That leaves this KV-1S. Hellcat takes out our Hetzer. Our KV-1S nails the Matilda. So, can I get some fire on this KV-1S without overly exposing myself? And can I actually get some penetrations in? Bounce. That one penetrated. Managed to go through his mid-plate. That one didn't even hit. The gun on this tank's fairly accurate, but bear in mind this is not a 100% crew. But we managed to force him to back off. Our VK's health is not looking particularly amazing, however. Unfortunately, and there's the KV-1S. And I probably should have just waited for this guy to pop himself out a little bit more. And try and get our VK, and then I could have put shots into his side. But I didn't. There we go. And we've got less than 5 minutes left. In fact, 4.5 minutes left. And we are attacking. We need to get a move on. We really need to get a move on. Now, you could argue that I'm being very passive in this machine. If I'm going to be honest, this is a lightly armoured tank destroyer. You have to be kind of passive. If you want a more active style, then firstly, you probably don't want to be playing tank destroyers. But if you do decide to play tank destroyers, you probably don't want to be playing this one, or this entire line. Successfully get a hit there on the SU-85B. But he manages to get into cover before I can get another one in. There, Hellcat nails our KV-1. We are currently trailing by 3 tanks, and we have less than 4 minutes remaining. Yeah, okay. This Hellcat had been annoying me for the last couple of minutes. Anyway. Oh, he moves back just in the nick of time. Put a blind shot in there in the hope that I hit him. But now we've kind of lost our eyes to a certain extent on this side of the map, which is a problem. Their Hellcat is cleaning our team up. That's just what Hellcats do, frankly. T49, T150, oh, this is looking bad. Okay. And we lose our Su-85B. I managed to get a shot there on their T49, and then I pull back. That shot was a bad shot, and it misses. That shot was another bad shot. Oh, my gunnery is not great at the moment. That was another bad shot that actually bounced off of him. There we go, a hit. Come on, lead it more. Another hit. But those 2 or 3 misses have cost me because he's still alive, unfortunately. We just lost our flat Panzer, so it's a KV-1S, me, and a Panzer 4H. And we've got just over 2 minutes left to win this. Oh dear. And we just lost our KV-1S, and that Hellcat is on 7 kills. I get a bit fed up here and start demolishing buildings to try and force this T-49 out into the open. But one thing to note, the Marder 38T does not have a lot of ammunition, as I hopefully mentioned. Oh, there was a space there that I could have shot him, and oh, Panzer 4H, oh, this is bad. He gets 1 hit into me. I get 2 hits into him. Can I get a 3rd in before I die? Do I get a 3rd in? I might have got a 3rd in. No, it doesn't look like I did. And he derps me. In fact, I was lucky not to just be derped immediately. And we switch view to our Panzer 4, who's the last guy left. He manages to take out their bloody annoying Hellcat, who promptly starts swearing. He also manages to take out their Su-85B. Good job, dude. But he's not going to win this. He's got a minute left for starters, and our Electo nails him. Sorry, their Electo nails him. And there we go. That was a bottom tier game, and we actually ended up doing very respectably, considering we were a tier 4 tank in a tier 6 game. So let's just go back to the garage. Alright then, so what do I think of this thing overall? Is this a good tank? Yes. Don't let anyone tell you it's not. Okay, let's rephrase it. This is not a good tank. It is a very, very, very good gun mounted on a good enough platform to make it work. Mainly due to that view range, if I'm honest, and the gun traverse arc. A lot of the other stats about this tank are not great. It's also good preparation for the rest of the tank destroyer line, which plays in a very similar manner as far as I can see. They're all pretty fragile with pretty damn good guns. Am I going to keep it? No. Why am I not going to keep it? Well, because I've already played the Electo. It's my tier 4 tank destroyer of choice. And I just find the Electo a lot more fun. It's less campy than this. The Electo can run around at 50 kilometers an hour, reposition, has a better view range. I just find it more fun. But this may well be for you. You may like this. It's certainly not a bad machine. It's a very good machine, in fact. So, you know, I guess it does come with a recommendation. So, I guess on that note, if you enjoyed this, or indeed potentially even found it helpful, then please feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel, and I wish you very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.